Thank you, Madam Clerk. I will call the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. We do have a quorum, so we'll proceed. I'll call the meeting to order. Approval of the agenda. Is there any add-ons to our agenda here today? Seeing none, the recommendation is that the agenda be approved as presented. Someone to move to put it on the floor, please. Moved by Councilor Colburn, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. Is there no discussion on the motion before us? Show of hands, all in favor? The motion is carried. Moving on, declaration of pecuniary interest. You can clear it anytime you see fit during the meeting. Minutes of the previous minutes. The recommendation is that the minutes of the Committee of Adjustment meeting held on February 15th, 2022 be approved. Moved by Councilor Pringle, second by Councilor Colburn. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, show of hands, all in favor? The motion is carried. We're down to our new business now, and I'll call the first public meeting to order. This is a meeting of Committee of Adjustment to consider the application for minor variance for Bobcat Grey Bruce Investments under Section 45 of the Planning Act regarding property located at 2022-72 Highway 21. Deputy Treasurer, please give your report.
Thank you, Chair. There have been no request for deferral or withdrawal of the application. Notice of this minor variance hearing in accordance with Ontario Regulation 200/96 made under the Planning Act was given on February 10th, 2022 by ordinary mail to all property owners within 60 meters of the property, which is subject to the application and to all required agencies. Notice was also posted on the subject lands and the township's website. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Committee of Adjustment, you must make a written request to the Secretary Treasurer of the Committee. Only a person or public body that requests a notice of decision of the Committee in respect to this proposed minor variance may submit an appeal. So I will provide an overview of the application. So, the subject property is actually just up on the corner here by the Township Office, Highway 21 and Grey Road 18, and it's the Bobcat facility. What they want to do is they want to put an addition on the back inside of the building, and they also want to recognize the covered porch that has been put up. So the covered porch extends into the required front yard by 2.29 meters. And our bylaw allows a projection of 2 meters. So it's further by 0.29 of a meter. So they need relief to the bylaw provision for that. They also would like to reduce the setback to the EP zone. The setback is 15 meters, and our bylaw requires 15 meters. Sorry, and they're proposing a 10-meter setback, and that's because of the location of the building. Right now, that property has a site-specific zoning amendment on it, where it limits the development of the front yard setback to the center line of the provincial highway. So they technically can't move the building forward anymore towards the highway to be 5 meters further away from the EP zone. The other thing that the committee should be aware of is that this application is related to site plan control application SB 0122. So as you can see from the report, there is no policy review provided. Generally, what we do with a minor variance is provide the 4 tests of a minor variance for the committee's review. We cannot do that because we have not received comments back from the Ministry of Transportation. Those comments are necessary for us to be able to review whether or not the variance is minor in nature, it's an appropriate or desirable use of the land, building, or structure, and whether or not it maintains the general intent and purpose of the official plan. So we can't determine that without those comments back from the MTO. The consultation, the comments we've received to date from the County of Grey Planning and Development Department, the county planning staff, The Transportation Services Department reviewed the application. They have no concerns regarding the county road, but they're recommending that further comments be received from the MTO, given that the property takes access from Highway 21. The county would recommend that comments be received from Conservation Authority regarding the hazard lands, the proximity to the river, and linkages on the subject property. They recommend the stormwater management study be implemented as conditions of site plan approval. And in addition to a condition for the owner to plant additional trees along the river to strengthen the integrity of the linkage. And that reference to linkage is in the county official plan. There's a core area within the plan, and it speaks to core areas and linkages that are used as animal corridors. The county requests notice of any decision rendered with respect to the application. The Conservation Authority provided comments noting the proposed addition and covered porch is located outside of the hazard area. It's located no closer to the watercourse than the existing building, and the existing building is currently located, and it's proposed at an acceptable floodproofing standard. They have no objection to the minor variance application and wish to be notified of any decision with respect to this file. The Risk Management Office at Grace Harbor Conservation Authority note the property is located within the WHPA-E with a score of 7.2, where significant drinking water threat policies do not apply. They do not have comments on the application. And we did circulate the application to all property owners within 60 meters of this property, and we did not receive any comments back. So the recommendation is that because the comments are outstanding from the MTO, we cannot determine if the application satisfies the 4 tests of a minor variance as required by the Planning Act. So the recommendation is to defer the decision on this application. And once I receive comments back from the MTO, I will bring an addendum report back for the committee's consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Planner. No members of the public registered with the clerk to provide comments in support of or in opposition to the application. The applicant is not present. Does the committee have any questions on this application? Seeing none. The recommendation is that the committee defers the decision whether to approve application A0222 until such time as all required regulatory agency comments can be reviewed and considered. Someone's move put on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlson, second by Councillor Colburn. Is there any discussion on this motion? Show of hands, all in favor? The motion is carried. Thank you. So I'm going to move right on to our next applicant. This is a meeting of the Committee of Adjustment to consider the application for consent for Gary and Scott Law under Section 53 of the Planning Act regarding property located at Kelpoich Range, Part Lot 1516. Madam Planner, please go ahead with your review.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There have been no requests for deferral or withdrawal of this application. Notice of this consent in accordance with Ontario Regulation 197-96 made under the Planning Act was given on February 14th, 2022 by ordinary mail to all property owners within 60 meters of the property which is subject to the application and to all the required agencies. Notice was also posted on the subject land and on the township's website. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Committee of Adjustment, you must make a written request to the Secretary-Treasurer of the Committee. Only a person or public body that requests a notice of decision of the committee in respect to this proposed consent may submit an appeal. So this application actually involves a closed road allowance. And what the proposal is to sever off a portion of this closed road allowance and transfer it over to the adjacent golf course property. And what will happen is it would leave a smaller residential lot for development. So in reviewing the application, we see that the property is located within the Niagara Escarpment Plan area. And so it's the policies of the Niagara Escarpment Plan that, that pertain to this development application. And so while it appears, as you would read in the staff report, While it appears that the application is in keeping with the Niagara Escarpment Plan policies, technically the committee cannot grant a municipal consent until a development permit for this application has been issued. So the report specifically cites the sections of the Niagara Escarpment Plan that that note this restriction, just for the committee's consideration, and that's would be on page 3 of the report. In reviewing the policies and the proposal, the staff report also notes concern with the size of the proposed retained lot. And as requested in the report, there needs to be more of a demonstration that the lot can be privately serviced. So when we look at the creation of a lot in Georgian Bluffs that's within a property in the Niagara Escarpment Plan area, we look at the comparable zoning. And in Georgian Bluffs, a property in the rural designation, lot creation would require a minimum of 2 acres. This proposed lot is half an acre with 20 meters of frontage. So that's 66 feet, and it's a half acre. In Georgian Bluffs, it would be 100 meters of frontage and 2 acres. So 100 meters is about 328 feet of frontage. And that's to demonstrate, and with a lot that size, there is more of an opportunity for the lot to be serviced, to guarantee servicing, sorry. One of the concerns that was noted was the proximity to the adjacent lands. There is a house next door. And so where is the well on that property? And, where is the septic going to be? So with this application, the agent was notified and has since provided a karst assessment for consideration, as well as some site plans. Those were submitted after the report submission deadline and will be considered by staff at a later date. And we would bring forward an additional report to the committee for consideration at the next meeting. So the comments we've received to date, the Conservation Authority, they have no objections to the proposed severance as described. It's for lot addition purposes, and they have no objection to the proposed development with the implementation of a restricted timing window for tree removal and a satisfactory engineering, grading, and drainage plan. The above noted tree removal window and grading and drainage plan is intended to apply to future development of the retained lands and is expected to be implemented through the NEC development permit. They request further notice of the decision. The County Planning and Development Department, they recommended deferral of the subject application until such times as a karst assessment is completed. And staff would also recommend completion of an EIS should the local conservation authority deem necessary. So as I mentioned, a karst assessment was submitted. It will be circulated to the county for review, as well as to the planning consultant to provide an addendum report. The Conservation Authority did not require an environmental impact study because the development, they determined the developed parcel, the residential parcel, it essentially wasn't necessary. The county is also noting that a road widening should be transferred to the county as a condition of consent, and that staff recommend the suitability of the retained lands for residential development should take into consideration that road widening. So that's another item that the planning consultant will be asked to address with this application. Enbridge Gas identified that they do have service lines running within the area, which may or may not be affected. They recommend that should the proposed severance impact these services, it may be necessary to terminate the gas service and relocate the line according to the new property boundaries. Any service relocation will be at the expense of the owner. The Risk Management Office noted the property is not within a vulnerable source protection area where policies apply under the Clean Water Act, and they have no comments on the application. We circulated the application to all property owners within 60 meters of the subject property, and we did not receive any written comments. The Niagara Escarpment Commission, in correspondence, the NEC note that a development permit has not yet been issued for the construction of a dwelling on the remnant parcel. They are requiring an agreement on title to ensure the proposed severed lands will only be used for nature and conservation purposes, and they have no objection to the proposed consent, and further note that registration of the above noted agreement on title must be completed before a development permit may be issued for the retained lands. So the recommendation on this application is to defer the decision pending the submission of additional information and the demonstration that the retained parcel can be used for private services on a half-acre lot.
Thank you, Madam
Thank you.
Planner. No members of the public registered with the clerk to provide comments in support of or in opposition to the application. Planning consultant Ryan from Questa Planning Consulting is present behalf of the applicant. Ryan, do you wish to say something, please?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. And through you, Madam Chair, my name is Ryan Kachuta. I'm the junior planner with Questa Planning Consultants, and as noted, I'm here on behalf of the applicants. First, I would like to say thank you very much, Ms. Burnett, for bringing forward the information and providing the staff report in a very, very speedy manner. So thank you very much for that. But at this point, I would like to address some of the concerns that have been raised specifically with respect to the actual lot size itself. So is there a possibility that I could share my screen here, if that's possible, if that's allowed?
Yes. Yes, you can.
Give me 1 second here. My apologies. Can you see the screen, please? Or can someone indicate if they can see the screen?
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you very much. So at this point, there were three comments that were kind of raised or brought forward at this point. I mean, in addition to the road widening, as well as the addendum reports that we will be bringing forth following this meeting. But with respect to the actual proposed septic location, as well as the location of wells on the subject property, and as well as on the abutting property, and then with respect to the lot size, I'd just like to bring a little bit more information forward at this point in time. So on screen right now, you'll actually see the site plan that we had submitted to the NEC. And with respect to the actual proposed location of the septic location, you'll see that it is in the frontage of the property, as located or as indicated on screen. Right now, the individual who would have designed this septic is Doug Briggs, who is a qualified individual to design septic systems. And as I said, you see that it's on screen right now. With respect to the actual location of the wells, we had actually gone through the well records to determine if they would be adequately separated at this point in time. So on screen, you'll see the location of the site in relation to the abutting property. And as you can note, the well ID is now highlighted on screen right now. And then on the next slide, this is what as you can see, it is indicated as the same well record or the same well ID. And it has a map here indicating the location of that well when it was drilled back in 1988. So as shown on screen, it's about 80 feet off of the western limit or the western property line, and then 80 feet from the frontage of the property. And that would equate to about 24 meters off of that western property line. The Ontario Building Code at this point requires a requirement of 50 feet between wells and septics, which provides enough room in between our proposed septic system, or the septic system that we are proposing at this point, to the abutting lot line. As I had indicated, would meet the Ontario Building Code requirements. So with respect to the actual lot size that I would like to address at this point, or kind of bring more information forward, as Jen noted, is that it's the Niagara Escarpment Plan that is the applicable policy document in this instance, and that it's kind of hard to or there is no specific zoning on the property. So to understand where the abutting landowners or staff are coming from, I completely understand the rationale, and we completely appreciate that meeting the 1 acre lot size is typically the standard to reasonably accommodate private services and ensure that the nitrate concentration is reduced below 10 milligrams per liter prior to going off-site or reaching the lot line. So in the location that we have proposed the septic system, it's only a 20-meter wide road allowance, so it's very hard to actually achieve that even if you do meet a 1 acre lot size. So regardless of where you actually locate the septic system, you're going to have a depth of about 200 meters on the actual lot in order to meet that 1 acre lot size. And then, as you had noted previously, 2 acres would have gone up to, it's about a depth of about 400 meters, which would be quite an oblong and long parcel. And regardless of where you actually locate the septic system on the actual parcel, I don't think that you would be able to meet that 10 milligram per liter, even if you were able to actually have that 2 acre or 1 acre lot size. So there is currently enough room on the actual site right now or enough room to separate the well and as well as the septics. And when we had submitted this to the NEC, they didn't actually raise any of these concerns at that time. And as I had noted, this is a former road allowance which would have been deeded to the actual applicant deeded to the applicant through purchasing. Essentially, at this point in time, it's a lot of record. So if the Maui's wanted to actually develop the application, or they're actually going through the process of developing it right now, and they wanted to get rid of the actual whole lot addition portion of it, that would be something that they would be able to do. They just need to go through the actual NEC process, which, as I had indicated, they're going through right now. The intent of this application is to preserve as much land as possible for natural purposes, and essentially that's what they're trying to do by essentially maintaining or retaining this small piece of land near to the frontage of the property and then adding the remainder of it to the golf course. Regardless of how big they actually make the property, it's not going to change, or they're not going to be changing the location of where they're actually proposing to put the actual dwelling itself. So I'm going to actually stop sharing my screen right now. Those are all the comments that I have right now. As indicated, we will definitely be bringing forward additional information to address any of the other concerns raised. For instance, the road widening itself, we may also adjust a lot line to account for that. But at this point, we do agree with the decision to defer the application. And those are really all the comments that I have. I'd be happy to answer any further additional comments or questions from the members of the committee. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ryan. Does the committee have any questions at this time? See none? I'll read the recommendation. It is recommended that the decision on severance application BO 522 to sever 1.44 hectares or 3.58 acres vacant parcel for the purpose of lot addition to adjacent Wharton Golf Course property be deferred. The application being considered premature until such time that the general civility of the small 0.18 hectare retained parcel intended for residential use on the private property has been demonstrated. Someone to move, put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Pringle, second by Deputy Mayor Carleton. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? See none, a show of hands, please. All in favor? Opposed? It is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Ryan. Okay, moving on for our next public meeting. This is the meeting of the Committee of Adjustment to consider application for consent for Bruce Trails Conservatory under Section 53 of the Planning Act regarding property located at 343137 Concession 14. Manor Planner, please go ahead with your report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There have been no requests for deferral or withdrawal of this application. Notice of this consent in accordance with Ontario Regulation 19796 made under the Planning Act was given on February 10th, 2022 by ordinary mail to all property owners within 60 meters of the property which is subject to the application and to all the required agencies. Notice was also posted on the subject lands and the township's website. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Committee of Adjustment, you must make a written request to the Secretary-Treasurer of the Committee. Only a person or public body that requests a notice of decision of the Committee in respect to this proposed consent may submit an appeal. So this application is made by the Bruce Trail Conservancy, and what they would like to do, they've acquired a lot, and they would like to sever off about a 29 hectare lot with existing structures, and then retain the balance of that parcel. So the retained lot would be about 40 hectares or almost 100 acres. And they're going to use that retained lot for conservation purposes in conjunction with the Bruce Trail Conservancy. So the property is within the Niagara Escarpment Plan area. And when we look at the policy review, we look at what the Niagara Escarpment Plan allows. So the planning report indicates that this severance application is generally supported by the Niagara Escarpment Plan. MDS was not required through for this application because it's existing. Everything on the property is existing. The house or the proposed severed lot contains an existing dwellings and outbuildings. So that's a barn and a Quonset hut. It will have frontage onto an open to a publicly maintained road. So there is no change other than to move the lot line effectively on the property. So in terms of comparable zoning, the proposed severed and retained lots would be in line with what the township zoning bylaw would allow. The uses as well, being no change to the severed property and use as a conservation property for the retained is what our zoning bylaw would allow that as well. So the comments we've received to date include comments from the Conservation Authority. They have no objection to the subject proposal for the described severance. They request notice of any decision made by the Township of Georgian Bluffs with regards to the application. The County Planning Department noted that given the retained lands would be used for conservation purposes and the severed lands are proposing no new development, the county generally has no concerns. Should development be proposed in the future, an EIS may be required and or the digging of test holes to ensure site safety from a karst perspective. It's recommended that further comments be received from the Conservation Authority, and provided positive comments are received from the Conservation Authority, the county has no further concerns. Enbridge Gas identified they do have service lines running within the area that may not be affected by the proposed site plan. They advised that should the proposed severance impact those services, it may be necessary to terminate the gas service and relocate lines at the cost of the property owner. The Risk Management Office noted that the property is not within a sensitive source protection area where policies apply, and they have no further comments on the application. The application was circulated to all property owners within 60 meters of the subject property, and we did not receive any comments from any of the neighboring properties. So while the staff find the application to be consistent with the provincial policy statement and the Niagara Escarpment Plan, and to generally conform with the applicable official plan, the county official plan, the report's recommending deferral until such times as supportive comments have been received from the Niagara Escarpment Commission. So when we submit an application, when we circulate an application for review and comment by the agencies, when the property falls within the Niagara Escarpment, we need them to comment directly on the application as submitted. Quite often what happens is an applicant will go and pre-consult with the Niagara Escarpment to get a general approval that what they're proposing would be supported. However, sometimes that discussion is a bit different than what comes forward through the application. So in order to make sure that we are making a recommendation to the committee to support an application that meets the Niagara Escarpment plan, we need the Niagara Escarpment planners to comment directly on the application as proposed. We didn't receive any of those comments until later, until after the reports were submitted. And what we will do is bring back an addendum report next month to the committee for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Planner. No members of the public registered with the clerk to provide comments in support of or in opposition to this application. Does the committee have any questions on this application? Seeing none, I will read the recommendation. It is recommended that severance application B0422 for Bruce Trail Conservatory to sever a lot having an area of approximately 28.9 hectare with existing structures retaining a 40 hectare conservation lot be deferred, allowing for follow up with the Niagara Escarpment Commission to ensure their support, as no comments were received in response to initial circulation of the application. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Colburn, second by Deputy Mayor Carleton. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? See none, a show of hands, all in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. Moving on to our last public meeting here today. This is a meeting of the Committee of Adjustment to consider the application for consent for Candace and Stephen Newmaster and Glenn Bowl under Section 53 of the Planning Act regarding property located at 462528 Concession 24. Madam Planner, please go ahead with your report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The applicant has requested that the hearing be deferred to a later date so that they have an opportunity to address the agency comments prior to the committee considering these applications.
Thank you, Madam Planner. Okay. May I have adjournment of this public meeting, please? Moved by Councillor Colburn, second by Councillor Pringle. Show of hands, all in favor for adjournment is adjourned. We're now done. We know other business here today, so I'll ask for adjournment of the meeting. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carleton, second by Councillor Colburn, that we adjourn. A show of hands, all in favor, please. We are now adjourned. Thank you, everybody.